we would like to move to a sort of reflective panel. And for that, I'd like to invite Mayor Brand. And I never thought that, it's so connected to the
brand.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I can't say I didn't learn anything tonight. Mayor Brand, Managing Director of Google Israel. Come, Mayor. Okay. Okay. Man, Israel, Greece, and Sub-Saharan Africa. Is that correct? Yeah? Okay. You'll tell us more about it.
Interesting combination.
Ari Melamud, CEO of Publicis Israel. Yeah. And last but not least, Itzik Zeig, awesome CEO and head of marketing. Okay, in the, we thought of a short panel to, as an opportunity to reflect on some of the things that have been said, but pretty much to use this sort of to triangulate the experience, because we have on the stage, we have a user, we have a platform, so to speak, digital media, and we have the intermediate and the mediator in the Publicis, Israel Publicis. And we recognize that each of you has a distinct vantage point. So it's actually an exercise, if you sort of resort to philosophy, of sweeping in, trying to get the hold of the idea by asking sort of each of you panelists, and you will join them later, okay?
I have no
you earned some rest, to highlight the digital agenda of the different parties that are present in the table, at the podium. And so let me start with, let's start with you, Itzik, because ultimately it's your business. So what is Awesome's digital agenda in 4 minutes?
Well, I can say a few things, but as Maurice mentioned in his lecture, I think that the marketing arena is completely different when you have digital. In the past, we had marketing, we had sales, we had promotion, and I think now market is in much more interactive place than it used to be in the past. So we can mobilize consumer, we can activate consumer, and this is something that we do much more in a digital arena compared to the past. So that probably is the main thing that we are doing. We have our own sites. I can show you on my mobile. We have our own site that we are actually mobilizing and activate consumer. I will give an example. We have a site which is called Bishulim. It's the biggest recipe site in Israel with about probably 300,000 people are using that on a monthly basis. And actually that's their site, it's not our site, we're just hosting them. So they are placing their recipe there, and they are judging recipes between themselves. They are rating the recipes, and they can make some correction in recipes and things like that. So it's a very interactive way of connecting with consumer in culinary. And you can go with your mobile to the supermarket, you open the application, and you can find the list of ingredients, and you can shop. And you have a list of ingredients you can shop for the cooking that you want to do later or the other day. So it's a wonderful tool for us actually to interact with the consumer in a very different way than we used to do in the past. Another thing that I want to mention, of course, is that with the digital media, which is a new media as we call it, it's that we find some of the consumers that are less on traditional media. We know that youth and young adults are less on traditional media, and then if we want to approach them, actually we can find them on the digital, on mobile, on things like that. So we're using the digital to approach some of the consumer groups which are less on traditional media. Our spend today is about 20% of our total spend is on digital. It used to be 11, it went up to 15, and this year is about 20% of our spend is on digital. Another thing that I want to say, which is relevant to where we are in the social arena, I think that companies today, and Maurice talked about it, are a little bit more transparent than it used to be in the past, and actually we are listening to our consumer on the social network. We can listen to what they are saying. Actually, in the past, you did something, you did some marketing action, and it takes time to make a survey to understand what it was the reaction of the consumer or to see it on the sales figures. But now we can have a reaction right away, and I can give you many, many examples about reaction of consumer to things that we did or competition did or in any other company. So that's in total our agenda in digital.
Very good. Okay, and as an interesting comment, my role here is to sort of point to you that many of the ideas that Itzik has mentioned actually echoing the concepts that Maurice has brought up. Ari, okay, your digital agenda, but you have a sort of a complex issue because you have digital agenda of two types, for your own and for your clients. What's easy?
Yeah, I think if you look at the role of the advertising agencies today, looking at the examples that Maurice showed earlier, I think we're facing a big challenge. And I think actually when you look at the role of the agencies today, you can look at it more as a marketing consultancy and a marketing capabilities more than just advertising.
Okay.
And when we talk about the digital era from our side, we would like to focus on one main thing with two implications. I think the biggest challenge that we have, and probably the biggest opportunity that we're facing today, is about the capability of moving this into what we now call the personal marketing. So, personal marketing is from my perspective, and that's how we call it, is a huge opportunity for advertisers to be more precise, to save money, and to be much more efficient. I'll just give you a few examples. When we look at the digital today, we would like to split that into three areas. One would be the traditional media, so you look at digital as a media. That's pretty obvious, and that's current, but when you look at the future and where it's going, obviously mobile is a huge thing. We just read the numbers from the US. The mobile advertising grew 20% last year, which is a huge number, but if you look at the future even more so, two areas that from our perspective are becoming a huge challenge and opportunity. One is TV. Maurice said something earlier about television. Smart televisions is a great opportunity. If you look at the sales of televisions today, 3 of every 4 televisions sold in the Western world are what we now call smart televisions. And when we say smart televisions, we're meaning televisions that are basically connected to the internet. And so think about the television of tomorrow, which is basically a big iPad, a 50-inch iPad that you put on the wall, and then instead of registering to a channel, you download the applications of the channels that you would like to see, just like you do on your mobile number. Think about what this has as a future of companies like Yes and Hop, for one example. The second thing about television is that very quickly from now, all televisions will be able to identify who's sitting in front of them. So, I was watching X Factor in Israel yesterday on television. My daughter was watching the exact same show in her room. Obviously, we all have a few televisions at our house today. And she, at the commercial break, was watching the exact same commercials I was watching in the living room. That's a waste of money. Now, tomorrow, and I'm meaning tomorrow, the television, through a very simple technology that exists in every television today, will be able to tell who's watching television by face recognition technology, which exists everywhere today. And when the television recognizes that I'm watching the television, it will put the right advertising for me. And when my daughter's watching television, at the same time, she will watch exactly a completely different commercials at the same break. So think about what this does for advertisers or for marketing companies in terms of efficiency and use of money. Now, this is tomorrow. Maurice mentioned the iWatch, the opportunity to move into, and then this is tomorrow. Samsung is launching the iWatch. Apple is talking about it. So everything will be on your wrist. You'll be wearing technology all over yourself, They're now talking, and I read the article today about the smart cars. Think about this. All cars today are not connected to the internet. What you need to do is just to put a SIM card in your car, and your car will be connected to, so your multimedia system, which today is just a stupid, sorry to say, a multimedia system, will be connected to the internet. the GPS, location-based. This creates a whole new platform for advertising while you're driving. Smart advertising, location-based advertising for other people sitting in the car. So when we're talking about the digital world as a media, this creates a whole new platform, whole new opportunities. And for those agencies or for those companies who will understand this opportunity, will be the first to go, it's a great opportunity. The other area, which I would like to talk about in a second, is the technology-based digital world. I think we're the only advertising group in Israel that has a technology department with a full-time CTO and team of engineers. But their job is to look at the technologies that exist around the world today and convert those into products at the service of marketing companies. Just to give you a few examples, the mobile phones we all have. We all have mobile phones. We keep the mobile phones everywhere we go. We forget our kids in the car. For God's sake, we will never forget our phone in the car. But this mobile phone is way, way more than just a mobile phone. It's actually our ID. And in the future, everything can be done through this. So just to give you a few examples of future products that can exist, just give you an example for for company. Sorry?
How about one major
One
example?
example. Yeah. Okay, we're using, Itzik is sitting here. A company like Osem today have no idea who's buying what product in the store because they have no direct connections to the shopper. This information sits with the retailers that normally do not share this information with companies like Osem or Procter & Gamble or any other company. Through this, companies like Osem will be able to tell who's buying what product where at real time and talk to them while they go in the stores. The products on the shelf will talk to the consumers carrying the phone. And this technology exists. And it's just implementation for tomorrow. So imagine the kind of magnitude. I'm always comparing this to a blind person today. And this can become, a whole new area of talking to consumers directly in the stores, just as one example.
Okay. And, it sounds funny to ask Meir about their digital agenda because, it's like many people say about the global world. I don't know if there's any other world rather than global, but do you have an agenda in the digital domain that you're pushing in relationship to what we've just heard?
Yeah, so first let me just say good evening to everyone. It's great to be here. Morris, I wanted to thank you for a super interesting and inspirational talk about where the advertising world is going to. And you've been a real leader in embracing digital, and I think a leader in your industry. But for us, you're also special with caring about Israel and all you do for Israel, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
What's Google's digital agenda?
Yeah.
Look, we're a technology company, so we're all about digital, and we're all about bringing digital to more areas of our life. We're going to focus here, obviously, most of our conversation on advertising. But really, we start with digital, thinking about the consumer, and we go very deep with that. If you look back into the old Google mission, which is to help organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and relevant for everyone. I know that when I go back to that mission, many people say, come on, information is accessible already. You've done that, it's finished. But I want to urge everyone to think seriously about that sentence and see that we are just at the beginning, just at the beginning. Organize the world's information. Most of the world's information is still not online. There is a lot of information offline. And because it's not all online, it's very hard to organize it and make it accessible. When we talk about universally, I know all of us take for granted access to the internet, but it's true only for us and our friends, only for our social segment. Maurice mentioned it. Only 2 billion people are online today. And you can say, only 2 billion, that's a lot. But it's also true that 5 billion are not online. So there's a lot more to do and work to bring everyone and have them part of this revolution. If you go on, is it really relevant or impactful for everyone? Does someone with a feature phone in emerging markets who has to have a feature phone who is also connected to the internet, do they really have an experience? Can they connect to the information? Not really. What about languages? You can find languages, take for example Arabic. More than 10% of the world speak Arabic, but less than 0.5% of the content on the internet is Arabic, right? So do they really have access to the world's information? Well, only if we solve translation, right? So there's still a lot of more stuff and a lot of more work to be done in order to bring information to everyone's hands. But to be honest, I think today Google is even looking more than on how to bring information to people in the best way and how to empower people's life every day. It also looks about how technology can solve real big problems. We've heard here a few that were mentioned, whether how we can save lives by cars and automation of the driving process, how we can bring internet to far villages in Africa, how we can merge the offline world with the online world with things like glasses that Maurice mentioned, how we can bring real broadband internet access, like 1 gigabyte broadband, not the 10, 15 megabytes that we're used to. And what kind of innovation will that bring? So it's that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I'll just mention very quick. Yeah, go ahead.
A clarification.
Yeah.
You had the whole shopping list. Is that actually representative of the digital agenda of Google? Or these are, how concrete are they, on your 5-year plan or whatever?
You're right. Look, the information part is very much what we do day to day.
Okay.
And there is this other part that maybe I can expand on later, which we call moonshot thinking. Larry calls it that way. Moonshot thinking is really going and looking into the future, far future. All these stuff like cars, internet loons or balloons that will be floating and bringing. I think that's a probably 5 to 10 years look, right?
But you already allocate resources to that because that's the ultimate
absolutely.
sort of distinction.
And remember, only 3 years ago when we talked about glass, it sounded to everyone as though we're talking science fiction, but now you're starting to see it happen. Also in first phases, but happening, right? We're talking about mobile. Everyone mentioned here mobile. But think about mobile. Only if you take YouTube, for example, only 3 years ago, 8% of our users on YouTube would go on mobile. Now it's 40% of the viewership of YouTube is a mobile. So these things happen so fast. By the time we're going to continue to talk about mobile will be totally irrelevant. Seriously, it's going to be irrelevant because there are going to be so many screens that mobile is just going to be one more screen. I think in the past 5 years, we got used to a world from one screen of TV to maybe 3 screens. But in the next 5 years, we're not going to count the screens anymore. We just won't be able to do that. Let's talk for a second about advertising.
Okay.
2 things.
Yeah.
One, it doesn't surprise me that Morris is now leading the agency world because we're talking about fusion between marketing and technology. Morris said marketing, technology, and sales is fusing. No wonder that the head and leader of the agency world comes from a CIO background and a marketing background, right? So that's the fusion in one person.
Right.
But that's really happening. If you look at research, they're saying that CMOs are going to spend on IT in the next 5 years more than the IT managers will spend on IT in the next 5 years. Right. So if you look at that and you look at online started really focusing on performance. We constantly talk about performance, how online helps, drive sales. Now we're looking at how online is going to create and build brands. So that's one major shift that I see on the advertising side. You can see that video online is growing at such a phenomenal rate. In Israel today, 30% of all video watched on TV is already on digital. 30%, and it was 0 only 3-4 years ago. So one side is really, moving from not only a performance based on digital, but actually moving to branding. And the other side, I think, which is super interesting, the best analogy would be the capital markets. We're going to see media buying moving from a highly human intense process to a real-time bidding automatic process.
It's already occurring.
It's already occurring.
Yeah.
If you look at the financial markets, It took them about 100 years to move from buying and selling a stock one per one and going into a financial market of a stock. And I think in the advertising world, you're going to see the same thing, but happening in a few years. Today, already 25% of all display is happening in real money, in real time, automatic programmatic buying. Go 2-3 years forward, it's all going to be there. It's all going to be programmatic, and probably also TV, etc. When you mention his kind of comments about TV going digital, etc.
To bring it to, we are in the academia. I come from the technology management group, and I guess in our introductory courses about information management, we talk more about marketing than we used to, and far more than technology, by the way. So the fusion that Maurice has brought up is occurring at all points of reference. The one interesting example, by the way, to the impact of Google, if I'm allowed. I recently came back from China, and there was a store with some kind of a name that I wasn't able to read, and the name in English was Google Server Error. Which shows you that the guy had no idea in English, but Google told him that that's the name of the store, so he put Google Server Error. Okay.
There is no Google.
In terms of impact. But speaking of China, where I spend quite a lot of time of my life. There's a saying in Chinese, one bed, different dreams. And we thought that could be an interesting way to sort of show the different perspectives. And this will allow you to participate, Maurice, in the discussion. Because, the question that we sort of agreed to relate to is, it's a new area, it's growing, perceptions and perspectives sort of evolve. And the question is, what is your expectation vis-a-vis the other panelists, okay? We called it fantasies with respect to the digital space. What would be your sort of fantasy consumer? Itzik, what would be your fantasy or fantastic advertising agency or marketing supporter? Okay. And then Ari, you will tell about what is your dream of the sort of fantasy
My dream of
a customer.
Well, the dream of a customer.
But let's start with the...
I would speak about the dream, and I think the dream is not related to the agency or maybe Google, but not to the agency. I think in a way, if you look at traditional business that we have, which is food, it's probably the e-commerce is the main challenge for us. Where the e-commerce will take us. Because we know that retailers are there. We know that some of the businesses that we have already is in e-commerce. Just to let you know, Nespresso, which is part of Nestle, is totally e-commerce. There is some shops, there is some boutiques, but probably 80-90% of the trade that they are doing is e-commerce. They are selling directly to consumer. They have a direct connection with the consumer. So I think for us, in a very traditional business that we have ambient, chill, and frozen food, the challenge will be logistic, of course. How you reach the customer in the end of the day. To sell him e-commerce is easy. The physical part is the challenge for everybody.
And you would look to any of these guys to help you in that?
Well, in a way, there is some example in some part of the world that e-commerce is moving fast, even in food. For example, the guy who is managing Nestle Japan told me that for $5, for example, you can reach in 24 hours every household, office in Japan with food logistic. There is no problem there. So somebody is ordering, on the second day he will get, for $5 he will get the logistic package or whatever it's called. So I think e-commerce is the challenge for us and the retailers. There is a collaboration between us and the retailer, how to reach the consumer, how to give the customer, their customer a solution for e-commerce, because today probably is very low, about 5-6%, but probably it will go further and further, and we have to see how to meet this challenge. Because we spoke about marketing, but this is the ultimate activation of consumer, because in the end of that, he pays the bill and he takes the good to his house or to his office. But looking at the challenge of the partners, first of all, I think the first challenge is every marketing campaign, everything that we do I think that the agency and the providers of services like Google and other companies, they should provide us with 360 degrees tool. I mean, don't give me a tool for TV, don't give me a tool for digital, give me I mean, we show some of the examples that Maurice presented. I mean, it's 360
Right.
solution, because it's not only digital. Digital is only, I mean, I saw the case of Amex. Digital was only, well, part of it. But I mean, the crucial part was probably some of the promotions, some of the infield. I think that they did there probably for that, and choosing the Saturday and doing the work in the store. So I think in a way that the agency, and Ari was speaking about consulting, give me a solution of 360. This is something that I expect, because I need to measure the thing that I do, and I need to see a whole solution, and then I think we can go and make a good marketing campaign which involve all the aspects.
Okay, so I actually find this, to some, you're looking for a partner for thinking about,
Yeah.
the...
Another thing that I want
please.
to mention
Yeah.
shortly, I think that Maurice was speaking about digital is going absolute very fast. And we don't have the means to understand what is going absolute and when.
Yeah.
So the digital partners, which are Google and other partners, and of course the agency, they should give us the know-how where the consumers are moving, because mobile was nothing 3 years ago, and today is probably 50% of digital, or very heavy into mobile. And if they will move to holograms and things like that, we should move there. We should understand when the consumer is moving, and then to try to see that we are actually doing the right, probably, approach to the consumer where he is, because this is the job, I think, of the partners that we have.
Okay, so let me jump to Mayor, to you, because and then we'll go to you're sort of the other part of the sandwich, so to speak. Okay, is Awesome your dream ultimate user?
Don't dare to say no, eh?
User or
We're
customer?
trying, good panels, you see blood on the stage, but that's difficult to generate here.
Yeah, but what do you mean blood? He gives him service, so he won't give him any blood, right?
Yeah.
So there's no blood there.
Okay.
I also want to court him, so no blood here. So the only blood you can see is from him going towards the two of us, and he didn't do it. So you will have no blood anymore in this panel, right?
Okay.
Okay.
No, but seriously, I mean, how well equipped you are, and is that, are you dreaming of a sort of fast-moving, someone who really looks for partner at your stage, or is it actually Ari and Maurice to be really a mediator between you and him?
I think the real answer is he needs all of us. I think Maurice said carefully that today, to bring the real solution, you need to go with partners, right? And Maurice mentioned the different partners. And of course, that's the right solution, right? Because here is the fundamental issue all of us are looking at and want to solve, okay? The consumer is running. He's not waiting for any one of us, okay? The consumer, in terms of technology adoption, is running. You talked about Israel. In the last survey done in Israel, 58% of time consumption is done on digital. 58%. So listen carefully. It's more than TV, print, radio combined. Right. Okay? And it was only 2 years ago, less than 40%. So that's where the consumer is. Out of that 58%, in the past year, the Israeli consumer is 18% of his consumption is on mobile. Okay? Now, he mentioned, and this is just one aspect, that 20% of his budget is going marketing, right? Going digital, 20%. Yeah. But 58% of the time of users. He didn't mention mobile, but mobile, 18% of time of users is on mobile. 2% of marketing in Israel goes to mobile, right? So by the time we get mobile, we're going to be in the next screen. So all of us have the challenge of adopting to this consumer world. And when I mean adopting, I don't mean artificially only to the media spend. Right. It's also building the right stories. It's also making sure these stories get across different devices, That the story works well immediately on a tablet versus a mobile phone versus a TV versus something else, right? So it's really finding his 360 solution. And the only way we could do it is if we get and help solve that together. You need to understand his needs. His agency understands him much better than anyone else. You need also, well, you can say differently, but I'll assume that. And,
Thank you.
and then technology is key to that. And I think a real deep understanding of technology and how to work with technology together to solve that is key. So yes, it's on our, we need to stand up for that challenge.
Okay, Ari, I mean, what would be the ideal relationship? Because you are in between, and the mayor just said that you, in a way, have the opportunity to lead that mediating role, and then I will turn to you, Maurice, as a final word on that. Okay.
Yeah, just to grab on what was said, I think still e-commerce is a huge opportunity, and our job as an agency is to support this move. You know, the numbers in Israel today, if you look at Shufersal, who's probably the largest retailer doing digital, less than 2% of revenues done digitally, while you take other equivalents in the UK, obviously it's the top of the line, but it's about 10% today, so 5 times more. I think there's a big gap that we need to bridge here. The agency's role is to help the companies to go there. I think that, sitting between those two gentlemen, I think our role is, Itzik said something about 360. Obviously, that's the role of the agency. It's mandatory. It's basic today. What we need is a partner on the other side to understand what we're offering. Because sometimes, not the case of Osem, but sometimes, you sit together with the brand managers or the marketing managers. They think they know television. They can read storyboards. They know what their job is. But when we talk digital, it's like they don't understand it. So you can come up with the greatest idea. They have difficulty measuring it. So I think there's a gap that needs to be bridged. Obviously, today, you cannot be a brand manager or marketing manager in a company if you don't understand digital deeply. As well as with the agencies. If you're an art director or an account director, if you don't understand digital, you need to go and look for another job. So I think there's a gap still to go there with some of the advertisers and some of the agencies to close that gap. So that's the one side. The other side, and my answer there is very clear. I think Google, or the Googles of the world, their job is to develop the technologies. Our job, being the creative teams, is to understand those technologies and to come up with the right solutions for our clients. And that's our role. So from one hand, we need to understand exactly what the brands need, and the other hand, exactly what the technology offers, and then to build the right creative solutions for those.
In a way, this is the ultimate challenge for any ad agency in that sense. Do you expect, maybe I'll sort of turn to Maurice, do you see an active role of the sort of advertising/marketing partners in educating the two sides of the game? Do you see that as your mission, as your agenda?
It is already what we do. We do on a regular basis training, education, seminars, and it is also what Google does, what Facebook is doing, and everyone which is coming with new solutions is organizing conventions, seminars, a lot of presentation in order to educate the clients and sometimes the advertising agencies. The key question, you are mentioning the dream. If I have a dream, it's not so much regarding the business, it's much more about the society at large. But regarding the business, what I think it has been said in the panel is that in fact, or yourself, in fact, what's happening is that the consumers, the people are going much faster than the organization. They adopt the new tools, they adopt the new behavior much faster that our organization can swallow, digest all these new trends. And this is even truer for what we were calling in the past the brick and mortar companies, which are these corporations which have organization, which are well oiled, and to move from one organization which is working very well in a world of reality to a world of virtuality, there is a huge gap which is very difficult to cross. And changing the organization is maybe easy. Changing the people is very complicated. People are used to do the work in a certain way, with certain approaches. We were mentioning, for example, efficiencies and digital. Most of the time when you see a brand manager, I'm not speaking for any company of the world, but many companies, a lot of them, and including in our own organization, and we should not believe that we are the very best and people are not, our competitors are stupid. It's not true. When you look at the way they are handling issues, they are still with organization systems which are much more with the old approach. Digital, for a lot of people, it is about efficiencies. Oh yes, that's good. It is measurable. There is analytics. There is measurement. I can know exactly who has been connected, and then I can check what has been said, what has been the return on investment, and I can improve, optimize, etc. The reality that this is a very short view of what digital is all about. Digital is much more than this.
Right.
And digital can bring a lot of different aspects. I said in my presentation that it is about mindset. And it is a change in the mindset. And we have to reconnect, recable the brain of the people, change the habits. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
People are used to work in a certain direction, so we need the young generation to help the older generation to change and to move in these new fields. It's not something which is easy, and I think it's Goethe who said human being is an animal of habits. And I think this is the reality, and how to change the habits is the most complicated things.
The the dilemma that I have. Yeah, you know,
I saw the
usually when I see this sign.
This means stop it.
Yeah.
I don't want to bother the people, I think.
No, the dilemma is, no, usually I'm the subject of it because I speak too much and he
This
says,
is what he is saying.
Yeah, okay. But I didn't say a word. The dilemma that is being solved by the clock is that, 20 minutes beyond the time that we wanted to conclude. Then I suggest that we, with your comments, we will adjourn. And I would like to thank Itzik, Tzayg, Aviv Maybran, and the excuse for us to meet Morris Levy. Thank you so much.